Hi everyone, I'm Jason Ritchie with Ontario's Upper Great Lakes Management Unit. Thanks for letting me give a brief update on Together with Gigoyag, which is a partnership project between the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, Parks Canada, and the Ministry of Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources, and Forestry's Upper Great Lakes Management Unit. Gigoyag means fishes in Ojibwe. Going forward, I'll refer to the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation as SON and the Ministry of Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources, and Forestry as NRF. So I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with the project. I'm just going to run through the objectives kind of quickly here. So I'm trying to find out more about the causes and possible management implications of the recent declines in lake whitefish in Lake Huron. We realize there are some knowledge gaps that need to be addressed. For one, we realize the movement of lake whitefish between management areas and even between basins is not well understood. We need to know more about the extent to which different spawning populations move around the lake and become vulnerable to harvest in different areas. And we have knowledge gaps on the stock structure of lake whitefish and the contribution of spawning populations to lake-wide recruitment and harvest. Also, the influence of various stressors on lake whitefish movement patterns is not well known. In general, we want to characterize the broad-scale movements of lake whitefish in Lake Huron and have embarked on a lake-wide acoustic telemetry project to do so. So the project has been in the planning stages for a couple years, and we've had 2 years of fieldwork completed now. So I just want to give a quick recap of the accomplishments to date, starting in 2020. So the collaboration paid off very quickly, and we were able to tag 50 lake whitefish and Nawash on the Bruce Peninsula in the fall of 2020. We were successful at tagging and releasing 28 males and 22 females, and we also deployed 2 acoustic receivers to act as sentinel receivers near the release site. So this slide here shows where we attempted to get fish last year, the pink dots over here, and in the brown circle, the Nawash site where we actually were successful at getting our 50 lake whitefish. We probably hit the peak of the spawn rate at that time in the fall of 2020. Now moving on to our accomplishments for the summer of 2021. So in spite of a continued COVID threat, we got lucky with weather and were able to lay down the entire North Channel grid of 26 receivers shown here in the orange dots. Also, with a lot of help from our partners, we were able to complete the Georgian Bay array shown here, with the west side being done by Parks Canada and Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. So that was a nice split up of workload for everyone. And now moving into the tagging portion of our accomplishments from 2021. In the fall of 2021, we started our first tagging location in Blind River. We had very good information from commercial fishermen on where we could try to catch lake whitefish. And at this site, we were able to get all our partners up here at the same time, working together to ensure consistency in the process and the data collection, and try to learn from one another. It was a great crew. However, unfortunately, we really had a hard time with the weather. A very warm fall, as you can see from the temperatures on the slide there. We just didn't get the right temperatures. We used overnight gill net sets to try to find fish and detect when they move shallow enough, and then we were going to switch to short sets to 1 to 2 hours, but we just never got there. We would have liked to have stayed until it cooled down, but logistically it was not something we were able to do, and we did not end up getting any lake whitefish at this location. On the plus side, we did get a lot of reconnaissance done. We have a really good idea of the area and probable locations for next year, and hopefully we'll be able to return to this spot. So our next site was the East Nottawasaga Bay site, and this is a repeated location from last year, or from 2020, where we captured 0 lake whitefish. However, in 2021, we hit the temperatures perfectly, and we were successful at tagging and releasing 70 lake whitefish. This site was completed by a mixed crew from NRF, SON, and Parks Canada. All lake whitefish were captured in gill nets, and every 5th fish received a pressure tag. We did try trap nets and electrofishing here, but we had a hard time with wind and some weather situations, and were not successful at catching any fish with the electrofisher or with trap nets. And the wind kind of played havoc with the whole project in all locations from time to time. that time of year, late fall, we're going to get windy days and miss some nights out on the water. Electrofishing is always going to be hit or miss in those situations. After we had done our tagging and left the site, we had report of one lake whitefish that washed up onshore dead. A member of the public found it because they saw a bald eagle eating a fish and went to investigate, found the fish, and were able to find our tag and return it to us. So it's unfortunate the fish died, but a small bonus there, we're able to get our tag back. So where the shoals show up well on Google Earth, I've included photos just to give everyone a bit of perspective. So you can see here the pockets of nets were put in places where we were catching fish. We continue to go back to those locations over and over to net at the spots we were getting fish. But this gives a good overview of what the shoals kind of look like, at least from the air anyways. So this slide shows a bit of a side project for us. Tom Johnson, who's an NRF researcher from our Science and Research branch, is studying the characteristics of spawning females as they relate to young fish and their ability to survive and recruit into the population. He needed fish and gametes to complete his work, so after our tagging crew completed their project, we sent another crew here to try to catch some fish for Tom. As you can see from the slide, the temperatures were good. We were probably in the peak of the spawn when we finished up our tagging, so we were able to go there and do what we needed to do for Tom. So on top of all the fish that we captured and tagged, we were able to capture another 100+ lake whitefish here and help this research out. So a lot of this work was actually happening concurrently, which is the advantage of having good partnerships. We were able to mobilize a number of crews and do a number of sites at the same time, and more sites than we would otherwise be able to do for sure. For the purpose of this talk, obviously I can't present them that way, so I'm just going to move through all the sites and in no particular order. The next one up is Dunk's Point, where we attempted to tag some fish off the tip of the Bruce Peninsula. This site was led mainly by Parks Canada and Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. And again, we had good information from commercial fishermen that lake whitefish spawned in this area. However, unfortunately, we were unable to find large spawning aggregations of lake whitefish. We had experimental nets. We moved them around, trying to, overnight gill net sets, trying to find spawning fish. But unfortunately, we're not successful. But that's why they look pretty spread out on the map. We did successfully catch and tag 4 lake whitefish here. But it seems like this is not going to be a great candidate for the future, just based on the fact that we're unable to find large enough spawning aggregations. So you can see the shot from the air here in this one. The shoals appear a bit sharper and less cobbly than in other spots, and that might have been one of the reasons why we just didn't get as many fish in this area. The next site we did was the Thornbury area, and it was not originally planned for this project, but because we had extra tags and a crew available, we decided to try this site. Basically moved it up from 2022 to 2021 because we could. This site is in Saugeen Ojibwe Nation territory, and again, commercial fishers liked it. It had easy access to launches and working areas, so we were able to mobilize very quickly to get to this site. And this site also happens to be pretty close to a proposed energy project. So this site was completed by NRF staff, and we were able to capture 17 lake whitefish, and we also captured 28 lake trout, which is notable. We were probably near the end of the lake whitefish spawn at this location. Almost half of the 17 whitefish we did catch were on the very first night, and the numbers dropped off pretty rapidly after that. As you can see from the map, we covered a large amount of shoreline using 3 nets, but we were still unable to detect sufficient numbers of lake whitefish, at least that late in the year anyways, to make tagging feasible for the fall. So these 3 nets here, the Meaford clay banks, were the most fruitful area. On the first night, that's where we were able to catch the bulk of our 17 fish. And while this is right around the same time we were catching fish for Tom Johnson in Nottawasaga Bay and seemed to be at the peak of the spawn there, this really seemed to be the end of it here. So both Thornbury and Meaford were really good spots to work out of, and this would be a good candidate to explore as a site for future years. So our last site for 2021 was a repeat of the Nawash site in both 2020 and 2021. This site was completed by Son commercial fishermen. We had high winds here in 2021, made it difficult to net. In 2020, as I said before, we were able to capture 50 lake whitefish and tag them. And this year we accomplished getting another 9. However, our target here was only 10. There's a kind of a concurrent project going on here that involves a virtual positioning system array, and that project's led by Ryan Lozon and the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. So because of this array, we need to avoid having too many tagged fish. We don't want to get too many ping collisions at the receivers, which can lead to erroneous data. So knowing that we had 50 lake whitefish tagged in this area, probably returned to spawn, many of which would return to spawn, just in order to minimize total number of tagged fish in the area, we set our target at 10. So Erin Dunlop is an NRF research scientist, and her master's student, Camilla Ryther from Trent University, is working on doing the analysis of this telemetry data. So the receivers here and the fish have only been tagged for a year, but she has started analyzing some of the results from the 50 fish and the 1 year of data that she has, or less than 1 year of data that she has. Anyways, she's found some interesting results, and I don't want to give too much away because there's a good chance she'll be giving a presentation on this stuff herself at some point. But there were some interesting findings, basically that some fish left the area immediately, while some stuck around for at least a good part of the winter and into the spring. Some we suspect are dead based on the continuous tag detections. As I look forward to hearing more about all these fish and the data once Camilla gets more into this. And here's this shoal. So we were able to successful at catching 80 lake whitefish off this shoal over the 2 years, and 59 have been tagged total now. So in summary, we were successful in getting 135 lake whitefish tagged over the 2 years. 85 this year, 50 in 2020. We've been able to get our entire arrays out for Georgian Bay and the North Channel. Leaves us in really good shape to sort of do the maintenance for these in the summer of 2022 and complete our array in the main basin. All the receivers that have been deployed have been uploaded into GLaDOS, and they should show up on their website. So anyways, even though it was a busy fall, it was a lot of fun working with all the partners, and we did have some pretty good successes. So I'd just like to thank all my colleagues from SON, Parks Canada, and the other NF staff that worked with me to help get this stuff completed. Anyways, thanks for letting me talk today, and I hope you found this informative.